What is a Toa Meha? You heard of a Toa Meha? This is brought by Achronim, this idea. Chazal mentioned it, in passing in the Gemara. The Ram doesn't necessarily paskin this way, but when you first hear it, it sounds practical. What is the mitzvah? What is the basic idea? Cooking Shabbos food. Make sure the food is decent before Shabbos. If you really want to cook something, let's say you're making perfect stew. So you have to stir it, you have to adjust it a little bit, you have to taste it, right? If you were to do any of that on Shabbos, that's an act of cooking on Shabbos. Okay. Tasting, let's say, the cholent or the chicken soup before Shabbos, at least this way I grew up, the Magen Avram says you should do this, is to make sure the food is good. The worst thing is having you work hard on a chicken soup and you don't put enough salt or spices into it, and then it's bland on Shabbos, right? Okay. So the basic idea is you're supposed to taste the Shabbos food. Make sure it's good, right? That's a mitzvah. That's the right thing. There's even a piyut that people say at Musaf. Those who taste the food for Shabbos, toameha, chayim zachu. So they earn life. Good, that makes sense. By the way, what is te'ima? We have a similar statement to the Rambam this is brought in the Shulchan Aruch, about what you can taste on a fast day. Okay, it says on a fast day, let's say a regular public fast day, umutar lo lit'omet hatafshil. Well, yes, wafilu bichdei revi'is v'hu shelo yivla ela to'em ufolet. Shachach v'achlo v'achal mashlim ta'anitho. We're talking about a little bit of food just to taste it, to know if it's good. So when they told you to'ameha once upon a time, what they meant was just a little bit, right? Certainly, on Erev Shabbos, by the way, you're not supposed to have meals. Yeah. There's certainly already from Mincha Lamala, you're not supposed to have set down Achilas Keva. You're also not supposed to even have a meal that's inordinate all Friday long, right? Shouldn't just have a very nice meal unless there's a simcha, right? Wedding of some sort, I don't know, whatever it could be. Bris. That's what they were talking about. So that's the tasting. Now I'll tell you about two experiences I have and why this became an issue. All along we thought tasting the Shabbos food meant something you do in order to make sure it tastes good before Shabbos. A few years ago, this must be at least now, more than 10 years ago, okay, a little bit more than 10 years ago, I saw some people get together before Shabbos. They're having their Shabbaton. And one of the participants, a young man, said, we're going to go have a l'chaim or something. They got together, everybody's ready for Shabbos, and they start drinking. Okay, it's like to help get into the Shabbos spirit. People love Hasidus, especially the type of Hasidus that involves, substance abuse, right? So these people were having l'chaims. They're knocking back whiskey and some vodka right before Kabbalah Shabbos, okay, and having sing-along and stuff. Well, I like the fact that they're all ready for Shabbos early. That's good. But why are they getting shikker right before Shabbos? Right? Going into Shabbos. These people. Okay? Well, that's what they were doing. This is a group. I'm sure you can find people in Jerusalem who have such a thing where they have a little bit of a l'chaim to get into the Shabbos mood. That's kind of weird, right? But that's what they were doing. And perhaps it was a little bit inordinate. I thought that it's okay to have a Kabbalah Shabbos and be merry about that without any drinking, because once you accept Shabbos, most poskim hold that you're not allowed to drink, period, like the Yerushalmi says. The first thing you drink has to be Kiddush. The Rambam assumes the first significant drink has to be Kiddush, but water is always permissible. Water doesn't count. Okay, that's what we saw in the Rambam. But the Vilna Gaon points out that most hold like the Pashtus and the Yerushalmi could go on Ana the Tzache. I'm thirsty. So what? So make Kiddush. No one says you have to have a long Kabbalah Shabbos and die of thirst. But if you're thirsty when Shabbos comes in, you have to start with Kiddush. And Kiddush, of course, is usually on what? Wine. Wine is alcoholic. So after you got through with all the davening and all that, and you're ready to eat, that's when you should have something alcoholic to drink. But to go into Shabbos getting all shickered up is a little bit weird. And it turns out, the next thing that happened was, around that same time, a group of Hasidish young men were having also a Shabbaton, somewhere nearby, which I'm familiar with. And when everybody was davening mincha 20 minutes before sundown, these Hasidish youths came back from the mikveh, and they're all, combing out their payas and putting on their bekashas, and then they cracked out a kugel. They had a whole potato kugel right off the black that had been on there, and they're just sitting down and eating kugel, a meal of kugel. What is this? Toyamel. Okay? They've taken the tasting the food before Shabbos to make sure it's good to actually have a certain meal set up, pre-Shabbos meal, because we have to taste that the Shabbos food is good. By the way, a lot of Hasidus involves doing things on weird schedules. They were going to take in Shabbos later than you, and they're going to probably have their first Shabbos meal later than you, but that's what they're doing. They're eating kugel, a plate of kugel. Why? Because it's called a toyameh. Well, you're supposed to taste it, but that's what they're doing. Apparently, this is a minhag to have significant amount of food, and that's now there was complaints in the Jewish media, especially in the United States. Apparently, this is a thing. It's a pre-Shabbos kiddush, just like there's kiddush after Shabbos davening in the morning before your meal, and it's quite significant. They're basically having a kiddush before Shabbos. They call it a Toya Meha, and they were complaining about this. Rabbanim in America, there was a prominent educator in I think it was in Far Rockaway, respected Rav, who was saying, look what these kids are doing. They have a full kiddush before Shabbos, and they try to go to the Torah Meha. And of course, it involves eating and drinking, and there was even some fatalities.
What?
Yeah, led to getting shikar before Shabbos, and they drive drunk and they get into car accidents. Okay? This is something that apparently is plaguing certain Jewish communities where this Hasidic influence happened, that they have these pre-Shabbos kiddushes.
Okay.
Yeah, so I don't know. Of course, such a thing is beyond forbidden. Okay, what was always meant was the person doing the cooking, make sure that the food is good. But having a pre-Shabbos meal is against everything that we find in the halacha, and especially drinking. You shouldn't be doing such things. You shouldn't be drinking. Drinking, l'shem drinking is bad, right? When do people, if you want to be a real parish, Rabbi Willig said, don't ever drink alcohol. You could get by without alcohol ever. Every time you need to drink, you have to say kiddush, you could use grape juice. But if assuming you want to use wine for kiddush, so you only need wine when you say kiddush, and that's at a meal. There's no time where you're bidden to drink without having some food. It can't be good. Drinking is just terrible. By the way, drinking today is worse. Why is it worse? In the olden days, you got shikar. You were going to go crash your horse. Okay. Nowadays, people have automobiles. Automobiles go much faster than horses, and they're gigantic and made out of metal. Right?
So I think you just have availability of hard liquor.
Yes. Yeah, go downstairs. How do you know much?
Younger people.
And hard liquor, by the way, Chazal never saw hard liquor. You have to distill it. Distillation to get more alcohol content than, let's say, 14% wine was very difficult. As a matter of fact, nearly impossible, if at all possible. But nowadays, we have much harder alcohol. We have more plentiful alcohol. It's cheaper. And we have the capacity to kill ourselves when we drink it. Chazal didn't talk about people getting into car accidents.
It says people also drink their wine zug.
Yes, and they diluted it also. There are people.
It says some guy to get drunk. Drank 22 cups of wine.
We saw a few instances in the Rambam and the Shulchan Aruch. They don't hold like Rashi. We still should be diluting our wine. Okay? The recommended halachic approach is to take your wine and dilute it 25% to 25%. Okay, yeah, that's just like using petrol. So you had 40% alcohol at when it's only 25% at the dilution. Now it's less than 4%. No, 4% or so, less. Okay, and and they had beer, so you know what beer is. But people, like I said, they couldn't drive their horse drunk and then crash it on the highway at 100 miles per hour. That didn't exist. Because I didn't talk about such things because it wasn't possible. Nowadays, people go to parties, people drive themselves to parties, people drink, and then people drive home. They shouldn't be. Okay? It's pretty bad. So don't drink, don't do it to Ameha, okay? And start Shabbos with kiddush, and then eat your food.
Which rabbi was it? Rabbi Zera that assaulted one of the rabbis?
Shachtei. He slaughtered him. That was Purim.
Yeah, no, but which rabbi?
Oh, yeah. I'm not good with names. And that's many Rishonim understand that to be, don't do that. Don't get shikar enough, even on Purim, so that you're actually causing harm to others. And that's exceptional. Unfortunately, we have cases, every Purim in Jewish communities of people doing, terrible things. Don't get behind the wheel. I remember seeing one guy delivering shalach manis with a cup of liquor in his hands. He was driving with the cup of liquor in his hands. Yeah. Just like, what are you doing? Purim. Oh, Purim makes it magically that you're protected from driving like that.
It seems like people like to give a lot of Easter in Purim and Shilo.
Yeah. There's a classic. They're Rishonim permitted cross-dressing. Why? Because it's Purim. Yeah. Suddenly it's Purim, so now it's because they're doing it for happy. Okay. Well, how does that matter the Isser D'Oraisa? Ashrei me that doesn't have to use these heterim.